build apps for the mobile devices. Now we're going to be moving into everyone needs to be thinking about, I need to build AI solution for something, whether it's a bot or I'm hooking into some kind of data science thing in the back end. That this is now the wave. For the next 4 or 5 years, the buzzword is going to be, hey, how do you have AI in your solution? How are you building AI into your app?
Right, to the point where one of the things they announced was Excel integration. You can create ML machine learning models in Azure and then call out to them directly from Excel.
Which is huge, right? I mean, Excel in many ways is the business front end for many apps.
Yeah. Have I said this on the show before? A friend told me every piece of data begins and ends in Excel.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Yeah.
It's the holy grail, the ultimate app.
It starts in somebody's desktop in Excel. Who knows what happens after that, and eventually ends up on somebody's desktop.
I worked in massive systems where underwriting type solutions where there were 40, 50 megabytes of, actually probably more, 500 megabytes of code written in Excel. And they're like, we need to move all this to the server now because Excel is not going to scale. So the other big takeaway with that was the fact that now you can use JavaScript as your runtime
I don't know. You can
tool in Excel,
or something. Yeah.
which I thought was interesting. Just more JavaScript everywhere.
It's real.
Not TypeScript, Jess. I'm sorry. You gotta use the real stuff.
That after you said that last time, that turned out to be extremely difficult to search. Try searching Excel, JavaScript.
Oh, you probably
the whole web comes back. The entire internet comes back from Google.
Two big buzzwords on the internet.
Right?
Excel,
you even get trips to Walt Disney World, like anything you want, it comes back.
It definitely was mentioned in one of the keynotes, or it was mentioned in one of the things.
Right. So bots. Are either of you building bots? Or working on building bots?
In my greater team, we are looking at how we can integrate some AI type stuff into our solution, both as for UI pieces, but also on back end type pieces.
Yeah.
So some people are looking into how to build bots and trying to figure out what it's kind of interesting to build, but then it's like, well, what do I want to actually do with it?
Sure.
So we end up building, I think, a search type thing where you can interact with a bot and say, I need to search for a file X, and it would invoke something in the application that actually would do the search.
Is everyone going to start with the homepage bot? How can I help you? And you'll say, hey, I need to open an account. Or is it going to be more than that?
I don't know. That's
been my big problem is I don't know.
Right.
I always think of you, Jess. You had the one guy after they watched the Super Bowl and they're like, how can we get to the cloud? Yeah. So someone's going to come to you, Jess, and like, we have to have a bot. We got to have something.
It's all bots.
Right.
We got to have 100 bots in our app.
Well, so that was the big thing that even in the keynote that I took away is they started talking about conversational UI. Like we've already gone past bot is kind of the core foundation of it all, and then we're talking about conversational UI where we're actually having intelligent conversations as opposed to like ask a specific question and get a specific answer.
So
I would love to.
Let me jump on a slight tangent here, thinking big picture, long term, right? Because the other thing we already have talked about is what was also a pretty key, important part, demonstration. I think it was in day one, maybe in day two, was HoloLens, right? And the whole little meeting thing. Yeah. I think we're at a point where I've been personally waiting for, where click UIs or keyboard and mouse, we're moving away from the UI being this physical thing on a computer to being augmented reality or something else. Right? Virtual reality, whatever it's going to be. AI needs to drive all that, right? It can't just, if I end up in a big world, I'm going to be lost, right? Where am I going to go? How am I going to find things? You need something there, right? What was the old Office thing? The little wizard guy.
Right, Clippy?
Clippy, yes. Yeah. They're going to rebuild Clippy.
Bob?
Yeah, or Bob, yes. They had the right idea. This was 25 years too early.
It looks like you're trying to open an account.
Well, we have Cortana, right? Think about it. Cortana is the personality.
Right.
Eventually, you're going to plug into the Matrix, and Cortana's going to be there, and we're all going to pretend we're Master Chief.
And then you'll ask her to ask Alexa something.
The difference is they gave an example about like you using cameras and machine learning that if you feed it enough video, then they'll be able to tell when a driver is doing something unsafe.
Yes.
And I think to myself, that's honestly amazing if it's because you wonder about the false positives, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I watch a lot of streams of people playing these battle royale games, and there's this feature on Mixer where they have something like an NFL Red Zone. It's just like NFL Red Zone, where the person closest to winning at Fortnite or PlayerUnknown's Battleground, they switch to their channel, and they do it by taking a look at the image in the upper right-hand corner that says how many are alive. And every once in a while, it's pretty good. It's really, really good, but it's hilarious when it's wrong. Yeah. And one day, I'm streaming on Mixer. I'm playing PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, and I'm in the lobby waiting for the game to start, and it pops in and it says, "Hey, you're welcome to Hype Zone. You're the closest on Mixer to winning." And I'm like, "Yeah, only 100 more to go, right?" And then a few seconds later, it skipped away. So that's a funny false positive. But then you hear this scenario that's like important for driver safety, and I go, "Well, we can't have funny false positives there. How does this work?" So
that's where the privacy is very important.
Sure.
What was the other word he used?
Privacy is a fundamental human
not
right.
Intelligent AI. It was like thought. We cared about human beings. There was some word he used in the keynote about the AI.
Oh, no, that one I forgot. No, we didn't write it down.
Yeah,
we blew it on that one, huh?
Yeah. Well, you have to watch it, then you'll see. It's like in the first few minutes, he talks a lot about AI being responsible, basically responsible AI. We just can't have AI going off doing crazy things. It needs to be contained.
Plus the focus on accessibility. I thought a lot of day 2 was, well, I shouldn't even call it day 2, but for instance, the demonstration of one person, I believe, I don't remember the exact thing. One person was speaking Chinese and it was being translated instantly.
Yeah.
And they were speaking to someone who was deaf.
Yeah.
And
that was like the Microsoft Hub AI integration piece.
Yeah.
Well, so that was
on day 1, I thought.
Was it day 1? It might have been, yeah.
That was actually hardware.
I took it as part of it. It was integrated into Office 365.
It was probably
they also mentioned,
it was all of those things.
They mentioned another term we haven't used, we haven't talked about today, Windows 365 or Microsoft 365.
We don't need to talk about that.
No. But it's the idea that services are in Azure that you're tied to Windows, and they thought this was tied into that.
Yeah. Well, that's
but it made
what
more
you
of an
use
Office.
Cortana for. That's when you ask Alexa to ask Cortana something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why does AI need to be right? It needs to be better. That's probably true because we still get into accidents, right? In fact, we get into a lot of them. Yeah.
It's our practice, right? It'll never be 100% because we're making it and we're not 100%. So we're flawed. Yeah. We all write code that doesn't compile. Yeah.
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 Yeah. No, you're right. I think you know what it is that, well, actually I don't know what it is, but I wonder if as human beings we're nervous that we don't have a person to blame for the mistake.
But is that
we don't know what that world looks like when it's a machine?
Is that more of a generational thing? You
absolutely.
Before about the idea that the kids were thinking of Snapchat or whatever.
It's just
kids today. They're always connected.
I know.
For them to say, "Hey, car, be automated to us," is great.
Yeah.
The 6-year-old guy is like, "I don't want an automated car.
It just means
I want that full power. I want to be able to."
The gray hair is real, and I've officially said, "Hey, I don't."
So this comes full circle. The quote you were talking about, ethical AI.
Ethical, that's it, yes.
Is what Satya Nadella started talking about very early on. You were right. And so he talks about, the quote is, what we need to talk about stop talking about what computers can do and start talking about what computers should do. So talking about the implications of this. And he went on to talk about, I think they were creating an ethical board in Microsoft to kind of oversee all of the AI stuff and just make sure that they are being ethical about it. And then he also says, AI should be a first-class engineering discipline.
Yeah. So AI Microsoft Research has a group, and I picked out one thing. This is one thing, right? Fairness, accountability, transparency, and ethics in AI.
Fate. This is the fate of our entire existence.
Yes.
Right?
So interesting. A lot of this stuff, it's think about stuff. It's not stuff you're going to take to work.
Yeah.
But is it who is that statement for? Is it for an executive? Like, hey, you won't end up before Congress if you work with Microsoft. Is that
a targeted?
I honestly think that message is more about Microsoft.
Okay.
Think about it. They're building a platform, right? All of us are in the Microsoft space. There's a good chance that if somebody comes to us tomorrow and says, "Let's build an AI solution," we want to use the Microsoft stuff first, right? We might look elsewhere, but to me, what they're doing is, frankly, they're making fun of Facebook again. They're building a platform so that privacy and being ethical is built in. Now, whether that's a reality or not is a whole other story. But I think what will be interesting is what's the practical case, right? If I build a bot that tries to do war games, right? Try to hack the Whopper computer, would it detect that? Would there be other bots that would start attacking my bot and saying, no, you can't connect and try to launch a nuclear war? I mean, what does that mean, right? Is it
War
compile
games.
time warning? Hey, you're going to talk to this button in the dark net. Well, that might not be allowed.
That was a heck of a reset. War games. Half the
War
listeners are
games.
like, "War? What is that? What movie was that?"
There's actually there's an online TV show that's like you interact. It's war games, but they do what you interact with them, and somehow the story changes based on I don't know. There was some ad on Facebook that came up yesterday.
Like to play a game.
So they also seems accessibility is near and dear to the CEO of Microsoft, right? There is a $25 million fund being started up to kind of incubate. I think this is my impression. It was to incubate AI projects that improve accessibility. It wasn't at this year's build, but last year there was the demo of the Microsoft engineer walking around with the glasses who would look at something and it would say, "Oh, a dog chasing a frisbee," and you go, "Wow, that's pretty."
Yeah, she was blind, I believe, or something.
Yeah,
or partially blind.
and I mean, and you can see that kind of stuff with the computer vision API today. And you know, I was talking about Jeff Fritz's stream earlier, but the computer vision AI, any of us can go to the homepage for it on Azure, and you can paste in some images, and it'll try and come back with what it is. And it was pretty funny because Jeff was trying to integrate this into his chat room. So if you pasted in an image, it would use the Vision API. And the first thing I did was go and grab a still from Never Gonna Give You Up, because I figured I got to Rickroll the AI bot, right? But it did come back and say like Rick Astley holding a microphone. So I thought, it's pretty cool. It did its job.
So real quick, back to ethical AI. Wasn't it about a year and a half ago that Microsoft released a bot on Twitter that kind of
Oh yeah, the Tay bot.
Yeah. So I think that's sort of part of it. It's marketing words to a degree,
like
but I think it's also raising the awareness that we have a responsibility as developers to define what's next, right? We can't. The days of you just going to write some code and hope it gets shipped. Think about it. We all put stuff on GitHub now too, right? There's no saying you put something very innocent on GitHub, reads a file or something, that someone doesn't then take it and try to do something malicious with it, right? So as developers, we have to start thinking about the big picture. I've always said this. Developers need to think like architects. You need to start thinking about the big picture and understanding where it's great Microsoft and Azure is building all these things that make it easy. Also try to understand how it all works behind the scenes. What is the meats and bones that are going to make it really work? Not just, I clicked the Visual Studio template, I have a button, now I have a homepage button.
Yeah, it's a tall order though.
That's why I'm consultant at heart.
So what else?
Ethical
what else
consulting.
do we have on here?
Ethical consulting.
Ethical
sure,
consulting.
yeah.
It's a good name.
That's a different
should incorporate
topic.
Ethical Consulting Incorporate.
We talked computer vision AI. We have this one, which I didn't completely understand. I honestly didn't. I'm not saying that it's bad. It's that bringing back the Kinect name, which if you're a gamer, you go, rest in peace, Kinect. But let's use it again to talk about using the similar kind of sensors but now you combine it with AI and you can get real work done, right? Like they're showing, I think what they're trying to show here is Kinect is zoomed in and said, here's how much stock is left. And
so the demo that they did in the keynote was they had a drone going around and they actually had
pipes.
They had pipes and they showed the fractures, which apparently, like generally when you have these pipelines, they're way out in the middle of nowhere. And so rather than having engineers go out and find stress fractures, you can actually just fly a drone and it can, using computer vision, using Kinect and the sensors, not just vision, but also what else does it have? I mean, everything that Kinect has.
Right.
Infrared,
and so depth sensing. For humans, the skeletal sensing.
Yeah.
It had voice, which you tie in with voice recognition, right? I mean, but
this is a device, right, with a bunch of power and processing on the actual unit.
It would be interesting to know if that drone was running that special version of Linux.
Yes, right.
What was it running?
I couldn't tell if they were saying it was a device or what they were kind of saying was, come get the Kinect technology.
Yeah, I wasn't very clear on that.
It was
I
hard
took it
for me
as
to
that was
figure
part
out.
of the Edge stuff. That just the Azure Edge was running on this drone. Again, that might be marketing spin more than anything else.
Right.
That's what my takeaway
So
was.
when I was researching this, I saw some pictures about a specific device, and so it might have just been misleading marketing brochures.
That never happens, though.
It looked like a device.
So I guess if we bring it home here and we say, what was Build about for the developer? Even in terms of AI, there was the slide from Hanselman where I guess I've left it behind, where we left out the pillar about ML.NET, which again, to your point, is another attempt to say, hey, we're going to make this easy and accessible to you as a .NET developer.
So when we say ML, you're talking about machine learning.net.
This look, that's all we got was ML.net is coming.
Because isn't there ML something for Word or something? It was some language that I think it had ML in it.
So if you watch the .NET Core roadmap with Scott Hanselman and Scott Hunter, you'll see that the third pillar, besides hey UWP and all that, is ML.net, and all we got was, besides like the short like demonstrations or ideas and concepts, was hey, once again, the .NET team is going to make this accessible to you in a way that's familiar to you. So
I mean, it makes sense, right? They ultimately they want people to run .NET on Azure, right? And they don't care about the OS per se anymore. So they need to build a framework that makes it easy. Because else, if you have to port the Google framework over, then you're going to go work in Google's AI, or you're going to work at IBM. You're not. If everything's there in the box, it's much easier for the average developer to get it and convince their boss, hey, it's in the box. I don't need to go download some other framework or purchase something else.
Yeah, AI is an engineering discipline.
I think that's a key takeaway to me. Yeah. I totally missed that. What that tells me is, as developers, we better be knowing that. We better be thinking about building cloud solutions, and we better be thinking about AI. That's a discipline we have to know, like knowing SQL or knowing web development. It's another part of that. You got to have some knowledge of it.
So I have not seen this session, but I was not shocked at all that just a simple Google for ML.NET build gets you an introducing ML.NET session. Like, that's not a shock to me.
No.
And so we can dig in there and learn more about it. But I think every time that we've done like a connector build recap, we always come back to, where does this leave you as a developer? Does it leave you relevant?
Right.
Does it leave Windows relevant?
No, well, and I think
does that even matter anymore?
That's particularly relevant here, because every time I have seen a demo on machine learning AI, specifically machine learning, they talk about, well, you as a dev are probably not going to be creating these models, right? All the dev focus, like ML.NET. I didn't actually watch this one.
Yeah, I haven't either.
I think basically this is still the takeaway I got from some other things they said there is that somebody still has a model. You're just interacting with the model.
But most, if not all of the presentations I've seen, they say you're going to work with that discipline. You're going to work with a data scientist who is going to build this model. So I'm just going to take that model. So they've skipped all like the actual important part.
That's the other part I think.
And they say, here's what you're going to code against.
The data scientist isn't creating the model. The AI is creating the model. You're feeding data into Azure. The AI is interpreting it and it's building a model for you.
You're not wrong, but there's like, I think you're skipping a step. There's like a magic happens here thing.
Think about it, right? Think about business intelligence, right? We can put all the data on the screen, and unless you have a CTO or somebody actually understands the order rate versus sales projection, it's irrelevant. It's just a number, right? So you have to have somebody has to have the discipline of understanding bad data in, bad data out. You put a bunch of bad data in, the AI is going to say, this is the answer, even though it's not relevant.
Have up here, train the model. Yeah, this is the workflow. You want to walk through this, Chris?
No, because I didn't watch the conversation. But I just figured it seemed like a relevant part of their conversation. And the example they give is that they've got to classify thousands and thousands of GitHub issues. And people did that. Yeah. And they said, boy, wouldn't it be nice if AI could take a first pass at it? Yeah. Which I think makes your comment very relevant about, man, if it was 95% right, the number of hours saved is astronomical.
Well, I mean, that's what I take away, right, for AI, right? Think about the AI as we've seen in science fiction stuff outside of HAL, right? Even data to a point. Their main purpose was to make the human's life easier, right? If I drive a car today, most of it's automated, right? I have automated brakes, I have all these things. The car's already doing intelligent things for me. Where if I have a car from the 1960s, I'm going to be pumping on the brakes well back because they ain't going to stop unless I do it. So again, to me, AI is about bringing more and more of that intelligence. Let the computer do the hard work, but keep the human being involved in understanding what's happening. Don't just build Howland. Hope it doesn't crash and kill the astronauts.
The last sub-bullet point was, is anything outside of Azure relevant?
Today, yeah. Because, I mean, right, we all went back with Thursday to our work, and we were building web-type technology, or working with Angular, whatever. None of that's mentioned here. Until Blazor comes, I think it's all relevant. And once Blazor comes, then none of it's relevant.
Todd's waiting for Blazor.
Oh. Todd's been waiting for Blazor for a long time.
Yeah. No, I mean, if you listen to any episodes of the show, every single time Silverlight,
yes.
Todd laments the loss and the death of Silverlight.
It's still the best web framework ever built.
It was a
It
plugin.
was a plugin.
For building apps,
Moving
it's still the
on.
best framework.
Now we have a plugin that's not actually a plugin.
All right.
Already
So,
there.
so what should I take out of build?
Should you take out a build? You should probably learn Azure.
Now I mean, how many dozens of services, right? And what does that mean?
I think
This
at
is
minimum
so
you should ask yourself today, right? Most of us have MSN licenses.
Okay.
Some
That's fair.
do, most do, which means you get so many free hours.
Sure.
It's actually not a lot. You can run pretty far if you run Service Fabric. By the way, you eat those hours pretty quick.
Enough to learn.
But you should take advantage of what you have. Just put your foot in there. Another thing that we didn't talk about, there's Azure App Services. I think it's what it's
Oh
called.
yeah, there's Azure App Service.
Which basically, when I was reading it before we came here today, it looked like basically serverless ASP.NET. The idea that you don't care about
appservices.ms.
Yeah, or something. Basically, you just build your app, and you don't care what the IS is installed or anything's installed. You just build your little web app, and then you just deploy it through app services. And they claim like 2 minutes in the little blog post.
I mean, App Service is a lot of things. You're right. I mean,
It feels like
it's
a serverless type solution.
It
for
can be.
ASP.NET.
It can
Web.
be. A lot of people actually still prefer to like push the binary up instead of saying like, here, just connect to GitHub and compile everything.
Yeah.
There's Azure Functions is in there too, and Azure Functions are pretty big. Analogy to Lambda, AWS Lambda.
Another thing I would tell developers to start doing is play with Cosmo DB. You have access to a NoSQL database. Just start playing with it. Understand what it does. See if it fits into your next solution.
Like you said, everybody with Visual Studio Enterprise, I think, is $150 credit a month, and then I think there might be a level with 100. I don't know for sure. Is it 100? Yeah, which is, Which I mean, you can do some things. And unfortunately, like you said, is one thing that I've actually feedback that I can't like try to say to anybody who will listen is that I think even when you give a developer $150, they get nervous that they might accidentally leave the spigot on.
Right.
Sometimes you can, sure. What I wish they would do is I wish, and you know what, some services are beginning to have these features. So when I say this, it is coming into being. But I kind of wish that some of the services you could say, like, hey, I just want a switch that shuts it off at midnight every night. So that way, and there are some of the services do that today. Or let's say you don't have this credit. I would love to be able to load in $10. Yeah. And when I hit $10, it's done, like a gift card. Where you can't really, there isn't an option to do that today. There's okay, I'm going for it, pay as you go. And then it's like, and I think people get nervous.
They have
and,
limits. You set limits.
No, the spending limit is 0 or it's pay as you go. When you first start your Azure account, your spending limit is set at 0. And that's cool. You can't spend any money, but it also means you can't spend any money. So you can't even try Cosmos DB.
When you use the universal DB, it tells you have 150 in it. It tells you every day. It shows you when you log into the portal. I think actually what they should be doing, instead of giving a number, part of the problem is, what does 150 mean?
Yeah, what does that mean exactly?
I think we'd better see them switch the model to, like, you give you 5 users per day for all these services. But you can never use 5. Because ultimately that's what they want, right? They want developers using this stuff, but they don't want people trying to run a production system on the $150.
Right, absolutely.
Well, we saw that on the Signal R service. Right?
Yeah,
sure. On the connection. The thing I was just talking about is Visual Studio App Center.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That was build your mobile app in the cloud. I thought that's where you were going.
No.
That was a different thing.
So that looked pretty cool.
That's been out for a little while,
your,
but I'm not super familiar with it.
That's running your mobile application, your typical Xamarin type application. It deploys a bunch of VMs that implement typically Android, but now I think it can also do iOS. And it runs a set of tasks you define. Yeah. And then puts back
this is the first time
and tightly integrated with GitHub now.
Yes.
So that sounded to me like the response to Bitbucket pipelines was to say, instead of building it ourselves, let's just link up with Visual Studio.
And then the other piece that I think that was interesting was, I believe you can also automate even ship to the store. So in theory, you could build your app, you could deploy it to Azure, it would run all your tests, and if all the tests pass, it would just say, talk to Apple, talk to Android, now your app is in the store. Yeah. It's automation.
Is this Hockey app?
No, Hockey app is a monitoring app. That's a different thing. Again, they sort of had a lot of this stuff already tied to Azure, but it was never really a product or a single thing. So I take it away now. They're putting context around it. So this is a thing.
Yeah, cool.
But I think the cost is maybe prohibitive for most people. We'll say though.
App Center?
Yeah.
Could be, if you're serious, then you go, uh-oh.
I mean, if you build a great app, yeah, it probably makes sense. But if you're a single developer building an app and you're going to run 150 emulations for 10 minutes, your $150 is going to go real quick. So,
all right. So where are we?
I think. I mean, we're.
Yeah, I think we're at the end. I think it's question time for the audience.
Yeah. I mean, what did you guys?
There are a couple of mics if you want to ask an extended question, just for the benefit of the podcast.
So what do we lie about? What do we talk wrong?
Sure.
Give us the feedback.
The other thing that I do appreciate, I think we have a pretty good audience. I was a little surprised. I don't know if the meetup was misleading or something, but but we were thinking, hey, who wants to watch a podcast get recorded? But yeah, the three of us have done some of these episodes of Static Void podcast, and I think have to get back to it. There's been a lot of great topics that came out of Build here, and obviously this group, you can always find out the future schedule for the group at the meetup.com/Philly Azure. There is a dash between Philly and Azure. And
remember the dash.
Then Philly Azure is on YouTube as well. And don't forget, if you can't be here, we're also on Mixer. So yeah, any questions or even discussion? It doesn't have to be a question. If there's just something you liked about Build that we didn't talk about, or hey, I can't wait to use this at work, or
you think all this is crazy? And
what a crazy thing is Microsoft doing here? Or we can, I mean,
no,
I thought you were going to say something.
No. What's your takeaway? What are you going to go on back to work tomorrow and work on? Look into.
I don't know about the Build and the Azure services are all exciting. I just moved a $401 bill out of SunGuard service into Azure, and it performs the same, if not better, and it's 20% at least on that.
Okay.
And it's all working.
And is this just like VMs?
VMs.
So it's really, so we're not even talking platform as a service.
Not even talking about platform as a service. And we still have all those things to take advantage of.
Sure.
But just, is it ready for prime time? 5 years ago, the whole reason I was with somebody else before Azure was because it wasn't ready for prime time. It wasn't ready to run a production. But
that's the one quote that Satya did say that I picked up on that I didn't mention here. He said, we have more regions than any other public cloud.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, despite just having an Amazon exec on stage with them, is a pretty specific dig.
Think about Office 365, right? My company's been using Office 365 for 2 or 3 years. It's the best decision we ever made. It just works, right? I mean, I've never seen a problem with it. I can always get my email. When it was on premise, the Exchange server, sometimes the Exchange server just took a nap for 3 days and no one knew how to fix it. We had to wait for it to come back. And it just works.
Well, what cloud does, it really does take the experts to work at the cloud company.
Yeah. Which was always the idea, right?
And it lets the developers and the architects, so to speak, do the work.
Right. Worry about your business.
Yeah. Are you a little bit less control when it doesn't work? But I don't know how much control you were in before. You were.
If you're using SunGuard or IBM, whatever.
Well, those people knew, and that was it.
Like your downtime might have been
viable
as much as or more anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
You just feel out of control when things happen.
Sure.
But
and it makes big news.
Yeah.
If like all of Azure goes down or something.
Blast radius.
Yeah. Right.
Yes.
For better or worse. Yeah.
But anyway, that's a real world thing. How Azure, 2 or 3 years ago, you're just talking about it, but was anyone really putting enterprise stuff in there?
And now it's happening.
Yeah.
How much?
Now it's real.
How much in control of that were the developers versus? I mean, I don't know what you'd call it. Some organizations call it ops or IT or.
I mean, they weren't. They had to do. We were also doing an infrastructure lift between 2008 to 2016, so that was driving a lot of it. And then what? So we're on our next gen of network, next gen of infrastructure. So it was, where do you want to build it? And if you're going to have to build something new, you get a choice now. And so we decided to go there, and a little scary day one. We had some performance issues. We had to black box things like, who would ever think that this size determines the IOP? Like, can't I just pick premium this much IOPS? With Azure, you can.
Yeah.
You pick premium, and if you pick a less than 1 terabyte drive, you get this many IOPS. If you pick this much, you get this much IOPS.
It's like a different mindset the way you have to think about it, right?
And they're all premium disc. Like, you look at it, it all says premium, like it should all be the same. But we actually had to spend $200 more a month to get a 2 terabyte drive, even though we only needed 256 gig for a temp DB. But you know, in the overall scheme of things, I'm still saving close to $5,000-6,000.
Yeah.
And that's not even using Microsoft's what they call reserve instances, where you can put down a guarantee. I'm just doing pay as you go.
Yeah.
And we're still saving money. So it's going to go down on the resume as one of those things that work. You know, we get the zeros, we should get the 100%.
I can't remember the year. I want to say it was 2008 or 9. Jess was one of the first developers to try to work with Azure, and every time he tried to do his Azure demo, it crashed. That was everybody's first expression of Azure. Yeah. So we come a long way. He's here at Azure Group talking about all the glorious of Azure.
It might not have been all Azure's fault. I'll just throw that out there.
It's pretty big to Lenovo laptop, right? Hardware problem. Anybody else?
I had a couple. So I'm an Azure Stack MVP. And so there were a bunch of Azure Stack announcements around all of the hybrid application deployment patterns that they're introducing for Azure Stack, so you can develop and deploy applications that run up in Azure or on premises on Azure Stack. Mm-hmm. So not everybody knows what Azure Stack is.
Right, yeah. Well, if you, I think, I don't know that my definition would be as good as yours. So Azure Stack.
I mean, at its core, it's an on-premises extension of Azure in your own data center. So it's an OEM pre-configured stack of hardware that goes in your data center, and it runs the same code basically as Azure, and it has a lot of the same services. So all the basic IaaS stuff is there, and app service is there, SQL as a service is there, Service Fabric is in, I think that's GA, and there's a bunch of others that they're trying to roll out. But the whole idea is it's using the same APIs for the ARM calls. So whatever you're developing in Azure, you could easily deploy on an on-premises thing.
Yeah. As long as you use this, so it's a subset of services. That's important. Yeah. It's not everything.
It's not the full blown.
It's always running behind, or maybe they pick and choose what strategically makes sense on prem.
So they're listening to customer demand right now. What are they asking for?
Yeah,
and that's driving the roadmap. Overall, they're trying to keep the APIs 3 to 6 months behind where Azure is right now. So yeah, it's always going to be a little bit behind. But they did announce Service Fabric, some app service improvements, and a Kubernetes deployment template. So if you want to run Kubernetes AKS up there and then Kubernetes down on your Azure Stack, then you could use the same deployment templates to, roll out your containers in both. I know that's a little bit different than typical web server development, but it's something that
it's an important step in the next 5 or so years that you need to mark in both things. And you said, is that hardware or is it actual? You still provide the hardware.
So yeah, you still have to provide the hardware that you buy from.
So it's like an addition to Windows, right? That's what I'm saying with Service Stack. Here was a way to install Service Fabric on premise, but I didn't know that was tied together.
No, this is like you don't have any real say in what's running. You're
on the hardware. Basically running a set of VMs that are integrated themselves together on your hardware.
Yeah, you have no access to the hypervisor, so everything above hypervisor you have access to. So it's pretty locked down. But it's a neat little solution, and I'm excited to see that they're really trying to push the developer angle now, because that seems to be where all the use cases are.
Yeah, and we didn't even talk about Service Fabric. I work in a Service Fabric type solution today, and one of the big things there, it's not quite there yet. I think it's still a week away. It's called Service Fabric Mesh, which is this idea that they're really pushing more towards. Service Fabric. You're right. The Docker images. Containers and things, moving more and more to containers. Today you can reference Service Fabric and you're kind of tied into Service Fabric, where it seems like now their push is, hey, just use containers and then use Service Fabric as your clustering.
But you still get the Service Fabric orchestration? Is
that never really any orchestration. You can reference stuff you want
management?
To. Okay. No, yeah, you still got all the management.
Okay.
Yeah, you still have all the VMs and all that stuff. But the way it works is, at least with Mesh, the way they described it, is the VMs matter less. You don't really use VMs anymore. Today you use VMs. They're almost using more of a smaller server, which means the footprint and cost is lower. Because today they're basically full Windows VMs, which can be expensive. So that's what I took away. So
awesome. Anybody else? Bill, you gotta hear
just a comment. If you want to get into the Azure world as a developer, a real good thing to understand is Azure Active Directory, because that allows you to set permissions and give different people rights to see different code, to do deployments, things like that. And I don't think a lot of even IT people understand that if you are an Office 365 shop, like Infragistics, you're already in Azure Active Directory. And all of your accounts are already synchronized to the cloud. And that automatically opens up a lot of avenues to do all these other services and things. Now, and the other thing you were talking about, Azure Sphere, that's going to tie into Active Directory. And one of the big things about that makes that different from just having some code, you talked about it as though the code was out on the refrigerator.
Yeah.
But the thing that's cool about it is it's all a secure environment. And if you've ever worked in the IT side of the house where you do Active Directory policies and you control what PCs can run what software, that's what Azure Sphere is all about. You're going to be able to register a refrigerator to your Active Directory and say, this refrigerator can do the following things. And that's it.
Run in the security context.
And when once you have that locked down, then you are sure that you're not going to get sort of a denial of service attack by, like they did on the show Silicon Valley, where they broke into the refrigerators.
The 4-year-old's not going to hit the iPad and all of a sudden control the
Azure
refrigerator.
Sphere is securing IoT? I mean,
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
that's exactly.
That is its.
I hope I made it pretty clear.
Is that a
I had
denial
no
of
idea what
supper
Azure
Yeah,
Sphere was,
that's
that it looked interesting.
that's its biggest value.
Yeah.
It's putting the Active Directory security stuff in Silicon, and once it's in Silicon, it cannot be defeated.
Yeah, right.
Even more so than that
Yeah.
is the fact that it's tied into Azure for updates.
Yeah.
Correct.
So one of the biggest problems with IoT devices today is they're insecure by default and they'll never get updated, especially the stuff that's in your house, right? So now if it's tied to Azure Sphere, it's guaranteed to get regular updates to help try to block against these malware type attacks. And the way that they've done the security is, say you've got an ARM chip in there with 4 cores, 1 core is completely dedicated to a security platform that's running at the kernel level. And everything else that's running on the other 3 cores has to go through that to do anything that's system level.
Right, and that's the part that Microsoft wrote.
Right.
So they basically took the security side of Active Directory and married it with an inexpensive Linux core.
Yep.
That's huge. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Because that's going to run in cars. It can run in watches. It can run in medical devices.
Yeah.
When
I knew that it was important, I just didn't know how. That's why.
Yeah. Well, we're developers, right? So it sounded cool and important, but not.
You can
well,
stand the other 3
in the
cores.
X files, they just injected a little chip into each person,
Yes.
Oh, right.
and now they have the chips.
Sure.
Yes.
Right.
So it's only
So
a
we're
matter of
almost
time.
there.
Right.
All right. Well, let me sign off the podcast, and it doesn't
Yes.
mean everyone has to go, but
Yes.
we'll at least have a somewhat of a recording, right? And so this is how we normally sign off the podcast. So this will be choppy because Jess always is the opening and closing. So I'm trying to be Jess here. So and you listener, what did you get out of Build? What did we miss? What did we get wrong? What should we have been paying attention to? We'd love to know. Please leave a comment on the website, staticvoidpodcast.com, or send an email to comments@staticvoidpodcast.com. And as always, if you have a topic you'd like us to discuss on the show, please feel free to let us know through those same channels. We want to make sure we're talking about the things that you want to hear about. So, Todd and Jess, I almost said